welcome to the show. And today, again, if there's any questions for Alex, just feel free to comment on any of the chat boxes that you see, and it'll come up on our end and we'll answer them. But without further ado, Alex, I'd love it if you could kind of tell us about yourself and about Dogs Bond.
Absolutely. So yeah, I'm Alex Liu, and I am a first-time game designer. And normally by day, I go and I do project management, program management for mergers and acquisitions in big tech. I live and work in Silicon Valley. That's where everything is. And for me, working in mergers and acquisitions, it's really great because you change people's processes and systems and stuff like that. But I really wanted to contribute something and really develop something that was tangible, that my family could also say, "Oh yeah, I know what you do." So that was the impetus. And yeah, Dogs Bond. It's a board game where players take on the role of a rescue shelter dog, collecting the attributes that they need to be adopted into one of the 6 forever homes. Our game is a set, collection, and press your luck game mechanic that infuses the rescue journey with whimsy, play, and most importantly, hope. It targets ages 10 and up, which is like a gateway game that welcomes friends and families to game night in a game that's wholesome and not necessarily as adversarial as the other games. And of course, we support actual real life dog rescues too.
Got it. Well, that's a lot going on there. That's really incredible. As a dog owner myself, I saw a Pomeranian in there, and I was like, because I have a Pomeranian.
That's awesome. Does your Pomeranian look like our Pomeranian?
My Pomeranian's a black color with some white on her chest, so
Okay.
not like your brown one, but
yeah,
the face is pretty similar.
The face is very similar, right? Yeah. Awesome.
So from mergers and acquisitions, games is really far off. What made you decide to create a game out of everything else you could do?
Yeah. I mean, board games have always been the way I bring together family, right? And I have 2 nieces, I have 2 nephews and a niece, and their age range was like 15 to 8, and I was like, how can I get them together to sit together with me, not using video games, right, without phones, to really stay engaged and connected? And that really was kind of through board games. And so I was thinking about them as I designed something that could bring everyone to the table, where the 15-year-old would be challenged enough that there would be a dynamic strategy enough that he could play, that the 8-year-old wouldn't just be blown out of the water, and he's still kind of learning how to take turns and match sets and kind of do that cerebral strategic thinking. So I wanted to do something for the family, and the theme kind of came about because I work with and volunteer with animal rescue, and and I talk a lot. So usually they'll put me in front of prospective adopters, and adopters will say, oh, I want a dog that will not shed too much, take me on walks, make my coffee, fold my laundry. And I'd say, have you thought about what the dog needs you to do? Like what you're going to change your life to suit the dog? And people go, well, what do you mean? And so this game was kind of my effort to put together something that could, take the player and get them the role of the rescue dog, so they can think about, what is it that the dog is trying to do? They're just trying to be the best dog they can be, and they're trying to find that home, So really kind of driving home that empathy.
Yeah, no, I love that. I could hear the passion coming from your voice, like when you're talking about it, and then having worked in like working with rescue dogs for a long time, I'm sure you have a lot of these conversations with people too.
Yeah,
I wanted to talk about some of the dogs that are in the game and also the people represented in the game. There's a lot of honestly diversity across the board.
Yes.
In the game itself. Like what were kind of the decisions behind putting that in, and how did you go about including some dogs and other dogs and people and some other people? Like talk to us through that.
Well, I knew that that there are many dogs, many dog breeds, dog lovers. I mean, the number 1 question, or maybe the number 2 question that I get whenever I pitch the game is like, oh, do you have this breed? Do you have that breed? And sometimes I can say yes, but more oftentimes, because there are a lot of niche, different, breeds out there, it's hard for me to say yes, right? We started off with 6 original dogs. And during the campaign, we actually wrote in and added 2 additional ones, right? So these dog breeds were all based off of, frankly, what I knew, because I grew up with dogs, and and my illustrator Sarah, she grew up with dogs, and Kiki, a graphic designer, has dogs. So we all kind of like knew enough about the breed and their mentality and their personalities that we could easily write in special abilities and powers, right? So through that, like as an example, my wife, she has Smudge, and he's a Jack Russell Terrier, right?
Yeah.
And he's lovely, we love him, and he's always digging in the garbage. So his special ability for the Jack Russell Terrier is, when drawing an attribute, they may draw from the discard pile,
Ah,
right?
so that
So
makes
it's like
sense. Okay,
exactly,
connection.
right? That's the connection. Yeah. So that's how we kind of chose the dogs. And then as far as the people go, I'm a huge proponent of, just representation, diversity, and I really, again, thinking about my family, having the younger generation think about them, and do they see themselves represented in these games? Do they see themselves, you know, represented either, from a ethnic background, from a economic, socioeconomic, or even gender identity? And I found, for me, like, most of the games that I could bring to them were dinosaurs and eating humans, and even those humans were just kind of one archetype. So I really kind of went in and looked very purposefully, and I had long conversations with my art team about this, of saying, I really want to have persons of color, and we have a non-binary adopter in the game, because I didn't want to say that, hey, there's uh, a pinnacle type of person that is good to be a dog adopter or a dog owner, right? And all those walks of lives are represented. I mean, of course, I've got other ideas, because there are many different styles and flavors of people, and yeah, would love to do expansions if that ever came up.
Yeah, no, that's a really great point about diversity and adding people, persons of color into game. Like, as an Asian woman, when I look at games on my shelf, when I look at games that are being represented,
Mm-hmm.
it's tough to find anything that resonates as well with myself. So this is
Mm-hmm.
a great thing to be talking about. There's a lot of conversation within the tabletop community too
Huge.
about this particular issue. So just seeing the diversity represented in your game is just incredible to see.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, looking at your campaign, right, your Kickstarter
Mm-hmm.
campaign, I have it up right here. It's clear to me that you might not be following the typical, I would say, marketing steps that other people in the Kickstarter board game marketing group, or people who read about marketing for games in general, have followed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I would love to kind of really dig into that. Like, how did you find your community? How did you build up your community? And what were you doing to kind of get those people to come and back your campaign when it launched?
Absolutely. We pulled together kind of a lot of feedback from the pet community, right? People who love pets. So, listen, the pet economy is a robust economy. It is like $2 billion in the United States alone, right? And so what we really wanted to do was, we wanted to say, hey, our game, as a gateway game, is inviting dog people back to the game table. Right. So I know that there's a cross section, like the Venn diagram, I'm sure, is huge, right? I'm a board gamer. I'm a dog person. That happens, right? But I think that for all intents and purposes, sometimes, like, the dog fans, right, or dog people, get really passionate about anything and everything dog. I do, right? And so inviting them back to the table with a game that is, light medium, something that has a time bound, like, expectation of about 15 minutes per player, so 45 to 60 minutes per game. That really appealed to me, right? To really try to build that forwards. And for me, I look at Board Game Geek. I look at a lot of these groups, and they are heavy board gamers. Folks who are like, I'm not happy unless there's a gajillion bits and it's going to take us 11 hours to set up and read the instructions and 3 days to play. Like, I get it. There's a heavy gamer, like as Sarah would call them, capital G gamers, right?
Yeah.
And I get it, but I think that for me, I wanted to make a game, that was accessible, that was something that could be even played in between, those heavy game sessions, a palate cleanser, so it's not, and I too didn't want to just jump right into dwarves, knights, elves, or, space aliens and stuff like that, right? I really wanted to make something where you can have an actual family game night and conversation around a lot of these themes, because when you have a conversation with people, like like if you and I were at a networking group, it's like, hey, who are you, where you from, what do you do? And these are kind of the run-of-the-mill small talk questions. When I ask people and we talk about their animal friendships, it's like your soul opens up. And that's what I'm really about. I think board games bring us together to that table and have an opportunity to have that conversation. I'm capitalizing on that. So that was how I found my people.
Got it. And from here, right, you were going to dog people who with this kind of like gateway game, this like super kind of simple like entry level game.
Yep.
How did you build up your community? What did you do? What kind of like tactical steps did you take? Did you like form a group? Did you grow an email list? Were you growing an Instagram? Talk us through some of that.
Yep, we went on to social media and Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I've learned a ton about that stuff. I am by no means a pro, but I use it, and I think that there's definitely steps that you have to take to make sure that the roads that come to your project look good, right? You want to have your Facebook all set up. You have the images in the right places. The links are working. You want to be able to build your list there. You want to have Instagram, right? Make sure that it's really art focused and it's not super long captions and stuff. It's not a long form type of platform, right? And so learning all those things, like, yeah, I just built it. And probably some of the best, and I listened to a lot of podcasts, attended, things like Board Game Summit, which actually you presented at. So that was really cool. And so, just kind of listening to the best practices and trying to get as many of those in as I could, given I'm only one person. And yes, I do sleep. I sleep probably a lot. But
What is sleep? What?
yeah, what is that? What is that? When you're running a campaign, you will find out that how little sleep you can survive on. It's a whole thing. But yeah, and so yeah, those are kind of the tactical steps from a social media standpoint. We really had to go out and we tried to partner with more animal rescues. I was very key to say, I'm not buying your list. I want to partner with you to deliver additional value to your supporters. And that was also something that we had to be particularly careful of, because we were going to rescues and our theme is about rescue dogs being adopted into forever homes. I actually had a conversation with Kickstarter themselves and said, hey, I am not violating your terms of service. This is not a charity fundraising thing. This is a fundraise for the actual production of the game, right? Like what I do afterwards and how we can support the rescues afterwards. That was critical to kind of make sure that we had everybody aware of how it would work out. But that was one thing that I was very hypersensitive about, because I didn't want Kickstarter to take down my project right in the middle of it. So
Yeah,
having
absolutely.
candid conversations.
Yeah, so basically like kind of reaching out to all these kind of pockets of people who already have that audience that you're looking for. Like when people who care about dogs online, on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, for example, and having those conversations. How did you kind of change the conversation from like, hey, you love dogs, to, hey, I have a game about dogs? How did that go about? I feel like a lot of people have that trouble turning that conversation to be just purely value to, hey, there's something that I am kickstarting that is coming to to the market soon.
It was a lot about aligning our shared mission and goals, right? At the end of the day, Dogs Bond, our goal is to improve the lives of animals. And how are we doing that? We're building empathy, we're driving awareness, right? And we're kind of bringing that theme into the game mechanics. And then at the end of the day, right, you're adopted into your forever home, right? And everybody lives happily ever after. And by aligning those mission statements and really saying, yes, we all share in this desire, in this goal, then it kind of came to a simple thing of like, well, you guys being the dog rescues, you are taking care of the dogs, you're bringing them in, you're vetting all these potential adopters. Us guys, we have created a board game to help you with that education, to help you with that empathy and building it as a tool, almost like a toolkit, right? It's in a box, right? Empathy for animals in a box. Like that's kind of what we put together. And at the end of the day, I said, please back our campaign. Our game is, it's meant for ages 10 and up. So potentially families who are maybe considering adopting a dog or considering having the child be like the one that's adopting the dog. And having those kind of conversations, but ultimately, just telling them we are here to be a positive force for change.
So as a one person team, right? A lot of people are like, how do you do all of everything, like the fulfillment, the figuring out the manufacturing, the marketing? What was your time like actually marketing the game, like getting in touch with people, outreaching? How long did it take usually? Like, what were you doing every day?
Yeah, I think that I had to bucketize that, right? And fortunately for me, I had a very tight knit, dedicated team. Sarah and Kiki were helping me all the time because they would produce, right, like a particular illustration that we were going to put into the game, and then we'd say, okay, how can we leverage this into some of our marketing materials? Can we put a different frame around it to empower, right, our partners or our supporters to share about our game? So like one of the cards that we have, the Instinct card, is a card with all 8 dogs pushed together, all squished in together, right? So we put a frame around it and said, hey, this is our booster pack image. So if you support our game, share it, post it. People will ask like, hey, what's that? It's got our logo on it. It's cute dogs. I mean, who doesn't love this, right? So really making sure that we had something to give those groups that were gonna, either reshare, retweet, signal boost any of our efforts. And yeah, I think I started marketing the game in October of 2019. Like, because then that's when the mechanics of the game were done. It was fleshed out. I had, a PowerPoint. I made my first prototype on PowerPoint and printed it out and cut them out,
Nice.
And then that's how I actually brought it to Sarah, who played with that prototype. And I was like, this is what it does. And then, yeah, they breathed life into it. So yeah, marketing was kind of through and through, like every opportunity. And yeah, we tried to build email list the whole time. We also tried to build just social media followers. Yeah, every step of the way.
Got it. So as a first time Kickstarter creator, you're
Yes.
doing all this, you're building community, you're like outreaching to all these like really relevant groups of like pet lovers, dog lovers, things like that. What was it like on launch day to press the launch button, and what was happening for you on launch day? What were you doing?
Besides panic? I mean, when you're doing a Kickstarter, and maybe it's different for folks who have much more experience like you, but like for me being a first timer, it was basically like going up to the internet, holding in your hands and like your dream and saying, this is my dream. Do you like it? Right? And just kind of putting yourself on display, and there's just a level of vulnerability that I was not expecting, but was very rewarded when launch day happened, we had a lot. I think it was like a Facebook Live event that we did just to kind of keep folks engaged. Within the hour, we had the Projects We Love badge. So thank you again, Kickstarter editorial staff. Thank you for that.
Nice, nice.
And yeah, and then I think we sold out of one of our top tier pledge tiers like within 2 hours, which is custom illustrations to have your dog in the game. So that was pretty cool. So we had a lot of news all of a sudden, right? And so we were pulling those down, doing little like blurbs about like, hey, this is what's happening. Hey, this is what's happening. Putting them into the Kickstarter updates, answering FAQs, reminding all of our marketing partners, hey, we are live. Let's do this thing. And yeah, it was kind of a lot now that looking back, right? But we had a checklist. It was like, okay, as soon as we hit that launch button, send the email to all of your, email followers on that email list. If you don't know how to build an email list, Nalin will show you. And just getting that all out there just as quickly as we could, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a hectic launch day. To be honest, no matter how many times I am there on launch day, I still get like heart palpitations the day before a launch. I'm always like kind of uneasy when I'm trying to sleep. I like wake up random times throughout the night. So like I get it, that nervousness. I don't think it ever goes away, to be honest.
Okay.
So,
well, that's
so be prepared for that for your next campaign.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, that vulnerability though, like that one's a tough one to like really talk about and really kind of encapsulate, because it's, you don't feel it every day, but then like you said, it's like, hey, internet world, like this is what I've been working on. Yeah, like hope you like it. And if you don't,
Right.
But
right.
Yeah. Okay, so from here, what were you doing throughout the 30 days of your campaign? Like, how are you continuing to get the word out? Because I know you were talking about, writing updates, and you were saying, the top tier reward was, quickly, what do you call it, sold out, right? What else were you doing to kind of keep the word going and people buzzing about the game?
Yeah, we continued to kind of produce those graphics and images that we allowed people to share, kind of just say, hey, this is our project. We'd love it if you were, backing us and supporting us. We also too pre-wrote things like emails for our backers to share with their friends, right? So instead of somebody saying like, hit forward and hey, check out this link, we actually wrote it out for them and said, hey, this is what Dogs Bond is. This is who we support. These are the kinds of dogs that are in the game. These are, what some of the reviewers and some of the, and of course what Kickstarter says, right? So we kind of swapped things up and really kept it live, kept it relevant to showcase everything that was going on, particularly when, we got enough people kind of coming to the campaign and saying, hey, I love this game. I love the idea. I love the theme. My game group is 6 people big and you're only at 4 players. Can you do anything about that? Right. And then we had a lot of people come in and say, hey, I see these wonderful dogs. These are really great. Do you maybe have more dogs that could join? Right. And so we started building kind of in the background on that to frankly give the audience what it wanted, because when you're doing a Kickstarter, that's who you're there for, because and then of course when we showed people that we were doing that and we said, hey, it's at 5 players, we've added a new dog, keep it coming, then like, yeah, we got a spike in the in the middle, and then we got a 8th dog, 6 players, and then people who were saying like, oh, sorry, my game group is rather large, they're like, oh, okay, and got a couple of pledges that way. So yeah, it's I think primarily being responsive, answering the questions that come to you through all the channels, and you can drive yourself nuts. So really think about how you budget your time. Like maybe it's an hour and a half on Facebook, an hour on Instagram to like answer the questions during your campaign, because it's really easy to flame out and burn out if you're trying to manage that all yourself.
Yeah, no, those are really good tips for sure for kind of being proactive too, and how you write messages for people to use to send out and kind of pre-planning that in a way, and
Mhm.
also listening to backers and changing up your campaign or adding things to your campaign that, will take into account what these fans, these like super fans, are thinking or taking into consideration. So out of
Absolutely.
all this, what are kind of the challenges or obstacles that you face that you'd kind of impart on other people on the same journey to kickstart their game?
Well, certainly there's no amount of pre-work that you can do that's too much. Every moment of every moment of your Kickstarter campaign or my Kickstarter campaign, I was always like, oh man, well, this would be easier had we done 1, 2, 3, or that would have been easier if we'd done 4, 5, 6. There's always something else that you can do to pre-plan and pre-prep. That said, I also think that you cannot mistake activity for achievement. So continue to push forwards. And sometimes you have to set yourself a cliff and push yourself off of it or jump off of it, because, that amount of pre-work of trying to get everything just perfect. If you're a solo creator, well, probably even if you're a larger team, like you're never going to be, so totally like complete with it that, especially if you're doing Kickstarter, because that's the whole point. You're getting the Kickstart to get you out the door, to make sure that, you've got some demand, that there's, a serious following or serious appetite for it. And when you go to Kickstarter, like, yeah, you should be prepared, right, for a swell of support, friends, family, people you'd never met who are just going to be super duper behind you. And then also too, you're going to have, several drinks of cold water, right? When people are like, you can pitch the game as hard as you want. And for Dogs Bond, the number one question I got whenever I pitched the game was, why isn't it about cats? And I was like, okay, great. I know exactly who my next market is. Help me with Dogs Bond. Get all of your friends and family who are dog people to back this game, and I will come back with a cats version. Like, don't worry. Like, it's on. The theme works. And just kind of, saying like, okay, yes, we just need that kickstart, right? And just kind of plugging them in, especially because we went to the dog rescues first. We brought in a lot of new people to Kickstarter. A lot of people didn't know what Kickstarter was, had never backed or pledged before, thought that it was like a donation service or something. And yeah, so we had to do a lot of groundwork to get our supporters to where they needed to be. And all that pre-work was, stuff that we did ahead of time. But again, there's never too much that you can do, but you also too have to be prepared to jump.
Yeah, those are some really good points. One question I wanted to ask, since you brought it up, was that a lot of your backers, I think it was like a fourth of your backers or something, were people who weren't in the Kickstarter community beforehand. They didn't know what Kickstarter was. What were
Right.
you doing during the pre-launch to kind of educate them or help them understand Kickstarter? Because a lot of people who are just like yourself are looking for audiences beyond just people who play games, like the capital gamers with a G, right? They're
Yeah.
looking beyond that. How did you do that education piece? What were you doing in particular?
I actually wrote up like a full-on like the 3 things that Kickstarter is, and things that had to demonstrate to first-time Kickstarters that it was even just a legit platform, right? So, mentioning Kickstarter's been around for 10 years. It helps small independent creators raise funds. It has raised, whatever, at the time, $17 billion and has 80 million active users every month. So this as a platform is the best way that a small creative like myself and my team can bring a board game as ambitious as Dogs Bond to life, to reality, right? And explaining also, when you make a pledge, if we don't hit the goal, you don't get charged. That was a big one. And then also too, like if we, if we don't succeed, like we can come back at a later time, but we'd like to succeed this first time, right? So those types of things were really important to teach the new, folks that were net new to Kickstarter, like what it was all about.
Yeah. And was that through like email marketing? Was it through like posts on Instagram, Facebook? How did you go about that?
Primarily email marketing, yeah. So if somebody, joined our email list, and we would send them out a note and say, okay, well, our Kickstarter campaign is starting, August 25th, Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. What does this mean? Well, it means that all the pre-orders can start, or all the pledges can start, right? What's a pledge? Define. What is Kickstarter? Define. Like, all of those things, we did a lot of kind of pre-work around to try to build confidence in the platform as much as we did confidence in ourselves.
Got it. Okay. So pretty much it's like working backwards and really knowing who your audience is, and understanding that a lot of them might not be familiar with Kickstarter, and coming back to your marketing message and saying, okay, this is the type of people we are going for, and being able to build the right message, like, hey, we need to educate them about this, what it is, to get that credibility and trust for the platform and the game too. Got it.
Yep.
Got it. And another thing that you mentioned that I wanted to talk about was how you needed to kind of form a cliff for yourself and sometimes just jump, right? At what point were you like sure that you were ready to launch? A lot of first-time game designers don't know how to make that line for themselves, or like form that cliff. When were you sure?
Yes, this comes from the mergers and acquisitions, like program management, tech stuff, right? You've got to be ready. You've got to jump. And so what what I really kind of pushed for was, I knew that we wanted to have our campaign running in August through September, specifically because we were going to be able to take advantage of worldwide hashtags that were happening in the month of, get this, Dogust, right?
Love it.
So we knew that Dogust was happening. August 15th is International Homeless Pets Day. August 26th is National Dog Day, right? I knew that these were big things with big followings, with big hashtags that I could just jump on, right? And just say, hey, look, we're part of the message, we're part of the community, and in that community, and be discoverable, right? So I knew that those 3 key dates were happening. And then, also too, just studying up on Kickstarter, understanding that, launching on a Tuesday and ending on a Thursday is like the best days to do it. Making sure that we weren't so close to the holidays that people were gonna like, shy away from us. And yeah, so a lot of those things just kind of drove the fact that we had to be live during the month of August. Oh, and it was Sarah's birthday, the day that we were closing, like lots of stuff lined up, right? But having that forethought, having that purposeful timeline allowed us to kind of build that cliff, and everything else just, okay, if you don't want to feel ill prepared for that day, go to work, right? So I was just waking up and I'm like, I just don't want to be nervous on that day, so I just work, and it just drove me.
Got it. No, that was really, really great way to kind of conceptualize like how to be ready. For you, it was like, hey, figuring out in your audience, in your the people who you want to kind of promote to, market to, what they're going to be caring about and when they're going to be caring about that, which is again August, and during that time period where you're able to capitalize on the hashtags to get reach. So for other people, it might be, maybe there's a big convention or something that is very particular to the theme of their game, right?
Exactly. Right.
To kind of capitalize on that reach, because everyone will be talking about that. Everyone will be hashtagging about that. So that's a really good point. And kind of working backwards, project management in a way, working backwards to build out everything you have to do to be ready for launch.
Exactly. Precisely.
Got it. Okay. So, from here, if people want to learn more about Dogs Bond or get a copy themselves, I know you're still in pre-orders. Where should they go? How should they get a copy for themselves?
Yeah, just go to www.dogsbondgame.com, and it's all there. Our mission statement, the about us, and of course the link to get your pre-orders in. And we're probably going to do pre-orders all the way through end of March. And then after that, we're going to close it up so that we can make sure that all the fulfillment is going to happen correctly. Lots of new stuff this year, as I'm sure you're aware, with shipping and, Brexit and just other things. So yeah, we're really excited. www.dogsbondgame.com. And you can find us on any social media that you want to, Dogs Bond Game. And yeah, otherwise, just reach out. Happy to have a conversation.
Got it. One other question that I saw just came in. Someone was saying this is great to the conversation we had about emails, right, and how you're preparing your list. What kind of other emails were you sending out in particular for prepping them for the Kickstarter?
Things like why it was important to back us as early as possible, right? So we kind of did a little kind of like education about algorithms. We did a little education on, what it means to be able to say, hey, fund it on Kickstarter. We didn't know that we would get the projects we love as early as we did. So we were hoping for that. Once that happened, we already had some canned messages that were maybe a little naive, but also too very hopeful, that we were just like, oh, unlock that, go send. So yeah, those were all messages that we tried to get out there. We also too, pre-wrote as much as we could as far as like social media posts, like things that we knew were going to be on Facebook, things that we knew that would, make sense on Instagram, hashtags that were relevant on Twitter. We knew what all that would be. And we had also spent a year kind of measuring what time is the best time to send. For us, for our project, because I'm from the West Coast, from San Francisco Bay Area, the time to post was usually like 11 a.m., like Pacific time, which was like 2 p.m. East Coast. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that I was going to conventions and so forth talking about the game. So a lot of our followers kind of grew from there. And then once we, started to try to push into other markets, other geographies, we tried to move the posts kind of around as far as like what the time was. But generally speaking, yeah, we had a lot pre-written, like hundreds of messages pre-written. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's really good to know, because a lot of people wait till the last minute or when it happens to write something. But there's a lot of things you can prepare. Like you were saying, there's hashtags that you have pre-research and works within this type of niche that you have. There's things that you're going to get 50% funded. You're going to get 100% funded. You're going to, unlock a stretch goal. There's all these things you can pre-write beforehand so that when the time comes, you don't have to kind of scramble, and you can just have all these messages ready. Even the Project We Love thing, you had that pre-written.
Yep.
And you didn't know when that was going to come, or if that was going to come even.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. So, understanding where we wanted to spend our time, and also to understanding what was going to be critical when those goals were hit, when the Projects We Love, badge came in, just things that really, you have as marketing messages that are ready to go. So kind of canned messages, but also to we left enough room to humanize them. You'll see, actually, I think it's maybe our first or second Kickstarter update when we realized we got the Projects We Love banner or, badge. I went into our, little Discord server, copied exactly what Sarah, myself, and Kiki said, which was mainly smashing the keyboard. And so it was like, 3 quotes, right? Yeah, we did it. Oh my gosh, this is incredible. And right. So, and just being authentic and just saying, hey, we are just as, if not more excited to have this campaign going. So I think there's operating too with that level of authenticity to your audience that's also important. And you know, I don't think anyone goes to Kickstarter to say, oh, I'm going to be inauthentic, but like, or like thinking that if I pre-write the message, it won't capture how I'm actually feeling. Just for a moment, think about it, dream about it, right? If you're doing a Kickstarter, you're already doing plenty of the dreaming and the thinking about the next step. Just put yourself in that moment, write up a little thing that you would want to say to your backers, right? Hey, thank you so much for getting us 50% of the way. Or, you know, hey, you did it. We're 100% funded. Keep it coming, right? Like there's plenty of stuff that you can pre-write.
Love it. And those are great tips for anyone looking to launch on Kickstarter. Just kind of get all that done beforehand and then infuse that authenticity in real time too with what
Right.
you're happening, like the smashing of the keyboard. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, Alex. And everyone, if you want to copy the game, check out dogsbondgame.com. Again, thank you so much for being on here and sharing all of your insights.
Thank you, Nalin.
All right. Bye.